Nou, we staan hier met deze fameuze painter. Ideas to talk in English for this presentation. Rembrandt, the famous Rembrandt on the Rembrandt Square. And the date is January 6th, 2010, in this winter wonderland here in Amsterdam. But this date, 6th of January, is the end of the so-called 12 holy nights and the 12 holy days rather, and the 13 holy nights between Christmas, December 25th, and today, January 6th. In other words, the date that the birth of Christ is celebrated on Christmas until this date, January 6th. Now, in January 6th is a twofold celebration. In the West, the three kings are celebrated, the three magi from the East who came to the Jesus child to adore him. And in the East, this is not so much celebrated as the so-called Epiphany. Now, the Epiphany is, as Luke says in chapter 3, an event in which the dope in the Jordan by Johannes marked, and let well on my words, the conception of Christ. Not the birth of Christ, but his conception. And this is something that Rudolf Steiner drew attention to in his so-called Fifth Gospel, which started in 1909 with his lectures on the Gospel of Luke. And he corrects Luke by saying that the voice that came over on the Jordan on this day of conception of Christ was not, "This is my beloved Son, in him I am pleased." No, "This is my beloved Son, this is the day I conceived him." In other words, it's the conception. And in this grandiose story that Rudolf Steiner started to lecture in various North European cities, he explains for modern consciousness what the Bible has been saying for 2,000 years. Tonight is Christmas Eve, not only for the Serbs, but for the whole Eastern Orthodox Christianity, the Church in the East. For the Church in the West, it's Three Kings, the Feast of the Three Kings. Now, how can we make a bridge between these two events? The birth of Christ and the adoration of the Magi. Now, as I've tried to show in my books and in my translations and in my blogs, the three kings came to adore their reborn master Zarathustra, who was reborn in one of the Jesus children. The other Jesus children was the Lucas child that Lucas talks about. Okay? Now, these two Jesus children with different parents, different countries that they lived in, united in the so-called presentation of the temple in Jerusalem. There the eye of the Zarathustra individuality took possession of the Lucas body that was offered to him by the Lucas child, and they became one, so to speak. Then this went on for 18 years. This Jesus of Nazareth then developed to the point where in the baptism of the river Jordan by Johannes, by John, the Rjk-Spirit, the Holy Spirit, descended on him, and this was then not the birth, but the conception of Jesus Christ. There we have his voice again. This is my beloved Son. Today I have conceived him. So these two events in the East and the West, in the East, celebrating the birthday of Christ, and in the West, the adoration of the Magi on this very same day, January 6th, both are equally important. There's no question of the one being better than the other. They're just different phases of the whole mystery of Golgotha that, as I said, is explained in the 5th Gospel by Rudolf Steiner, which he says is the way to understand the 4 Gospels by the modern consciousness. It's the new Christianity for this millennium. Okay, now we're standing here behind this beautiful Christmas tree on Dam Square. And to continue, Eastern Christianity is celebrating Christmas on their December 24th, which is our January 6th. So because of the difference in the calendar, we are celebrating the same things at different times. So one of the ways to unify Christianity is to agree to a common calendar. Now, I'll try to describe this very shortly, how this could be done. The only date that Rudolf Steiner gave in his 5th Gospel was the date of the crucifixion. That was April 3rd, 33. Now, Jesus was 33 and a third years old. You go back, you come to the date of Christmas 2 BC as a date of the Lucas child. Now, the way to come to a common calendar, according to the idea of Rudolf Steiner, was to take the real date of the birth of Christ, which is the 3rd of April 33, as the beginning of our calendar. Now, how do we get from the birth of the 2 Jesus children to the crucifixion and the resurrection?